I stood frozen as Michael raised his champagne glass, his voice carrying across our family estate's garden, where over 150 relatives and friends had gathered for our annual reunion. I'd like to thank everyone for coming to celebrate the Donovan legacy. My older brother announced, his perfect smile gleaming in the afternoon sun. And I'm honored to announce that after years of dedicated service to our family business, Dad has officially named me the sole CEO and majority shareholder of Donovan Enterprises. The crowd erupted in applause. I forced myself to maintain my composure, though my hand tightened around my wine glass until my knuckles turned white. This was the first I'd heard of this decision, a decision that should have been impossible given our father's original succession plan for equal leadership between us. My sister-in-law, Elena, caught my eye from across the garden, her sympathetic glance confirming what I already suspected. This wasn't a last-minute change of heart from our father, who had been diagnosed with early-stage dementia 6 months ago. This was Michael's calculated betrayal. James will continue handling the creative division, of course, Michael added with a dismissive wave in my direction, his tone dripping with condescension. What would we do without his artistic contributions? Soft laughter rippled through the crowd. I felt the weight of 150 pairs of eyes on me, waiting for my reaction. The hurt, the outburst, the dramatic exit everyone expected. Instead, I smiled and slowly reached into my jacket, pulling out a sealed blue envelope. "Congratulations, Michael," I said, my voice calm but audible to everyone. "I have something for you as well." Michael's triumphant smile faltered slightly as I approached him. Envelope extended. The crowd fell silent, sensing a shift in the atmosphere. The crystal champagne flutes clinked gently in the sudden quiet. Even the birds seemed to pause their songs in the surrounding oak trees. "What's this little brother A drawing for the new catalog?" he asked with a chuckle loud enough for nearby guests to hear. More gentle laughter followed, though it sounded uncertain now. "Something for you to read right now," I replied, my voice stronger than I expected. Our father watched from his seat of honor, his expression clouded with confusion, but his eyes alert, sensing the tension between his sons. "I'm James Donovan, 45 years old, and until this moment, I had played the role of the loyal younger brother perfectly. Growing up, Michael was always the golden child, the one with Dad's business acumen, the straight A student, the natural leader. I was the creative one, the dreamer who preferred sketching designs to studying financial statements. Yet it was my innovative product designs that had transformed Donovan Enterprises from a regional furniture manufacturer to a national brand with celebrity endorsements. My modern, sustainable pieces had been featured in architectural magazines and high-end showrooms across the country. For 15 years, I had poured my soul into the company, working weekends and holidays, sacrificing my personal life for our family legacy. When my marriage to Claire ended 3 years ago, Michael had put his arm around my shoulder at the courthouse and promised, "The business will always be there for you, James, family first." What no one knew was that I had been the one who nursed Dad through his cancer treatment 10 years ago. I was the one who drove him to chemotherapy sessions at 5 a.m. while Michael was too busy closing deals. I was the one who handled Dad's medications, his diet, his recovery exercises, all while maintaining my workload at the company Dad had promised us both. "The company is your birthright, both of you equally." He had drawn up succession plans, had them notarized, filed them with the family attorney, or so I thought. Our mother had died when we were teenagers, and in her absence, Dad had emphasized the importance of brotherhood. "You two are all you've got," he would say. "Take care of each other." Michael and I had been close, then sharing dreams for the company's future, complementing each other's strengths. He had the business mind, I had the creative vision. Together, we were supposed to be unstoppable. During those dark days of Dad's cancer treatment, I'd sometimes catch glimpses of that brother I once knew. He'd bring coffee during overnight hospital stays or handle an urgent client call when I was exhausted. But those moments became increasingly rare as the company grew more successful. Michael began to see himself not as my partner, but as my superior, the real businessman carrying his dreamer brother as a burden rather than an asset. 6 months ago, when Dad's memory began to fail, subtle changes appeared at the office. Michael began excluding me from executive meetings, claiming they were just boring financial discussions. Documents required my signature with little time for review. Just routine stuff. James, trust me, I did trust him. He was my brother. We had shared bunk beds, baseball games, and our first beer together. When Elena, his wife, called me one evening, her voice hushed and nervous. I should have paid more attention. James, I'm worried about some papers Michael asked your father to sign yesterday. He made sure no one else was in the room. I dismissed her concerns. Dad wouldn't sign anything that wasn't fair to both of us. He's always been meticulous about equality. But then came the missing files from Dad's home office, the new security protocols at headquarters that somehow restricted my access to the financial databases. The executive assistant I'd worked with for years suddenly transferred to another department, replaced by Michael's college buddy. I began quietly investigating. What I discovered was worse than I imagined. Michael had been systematically consolidating power for over a year. He had introduced our father, whose cognitive decline was more advanced than anyone realized, to a new estate planner. He had created a separate LLC that was quietly absorbing Donovan Enterprises' most valuable assets. He had even been courting our major clients, suggesting that my design vision was becoming outdated. The most painful discovery came during a chance meeting with our oldest client, Harold Zimmerman. James, I was sorry to hear you're planning to step back from the company next year, he said, clapping me on the shoulder. Michael mentioned you wanted to explore other creative avenues. A shame, but he assured us the design team you've built will maintain your standards. I smiled through my shock. Harold, you know how rumors exaggerate. I'm not going anywhere. Later that night, I found email drafts on the company server announcing my sabbatical, dated to begin 1 month after the family reunion. Michael had been planning my exit without my knowledge, constructing a narrative where I voluntarily stepped aside rather than being pushed out. What Michael had forgotten, or perhaps never fully understood, was that I wasn't just the creative brother. Before joining the family business, I had earned an MBA from Wharton. I understood corporate structures, financial statements, and most importantly, intellectual property law. While Michael plotted his takeover, I was building my case. I consulted with attorneys specializing in elder abuse and corporate governance. I documented every suspicious transaction I secured, notarized statements from Dad's doctors about the progression of his condition. I backed up emails, meeting notes, and design files going back 15 years. Most crucially, I discovered that in his haste to seize control, Michael had made a critical oversight. The innovative manufacturing process I had developed, the one that had cut our production costs by 40% and made our eco-friendly line possible, had never been formally transferred to Donovan Enterprises. The patent remained in my name personally. A technicality that Michael, focused on flashy sales figures, had never bothered to address. 3 months ago, I formed a separate holding company and transferred my personal patents, including the manufacturing process, into its protection. I lined up conversations with our three largest competitors. I secured private funding for a venture of my own, if it came to that. Then I waited, knowing Michael would want a public venue for his triumph. The annual family reunion, with relatives flying in from across the country, would be too perfect an opportunity to resist. I also did something that surprised even me. I bought a car. Not just any car, but a custom Aston Martin Valkyrie, one of only 150 in the world, valued at just over $800,000. It was the exact model Michael had been obsessing over for years, the car he'd planned to buy himself as a reward once he took control of the company. I didn't buy it out of spite, though the timing might suggest otherwise. I bought it because during Dad's cancer treatment, when I was exhausted from caregiving And work, I'd made a promise to myself if the company ever reached $100 million in valuation, I would buy something ridiculous and beautiful just for me. We had hit that milestone last quarter, largely due to my designs, but Michael had dismissed the suggestion of bonuses or celebrations. We need to reinvest everything, he'd insisted. The car remained hidden at my friend Thomas's exotic car dealership, waiting for the right moment. Wasn't sure yet if I would ever drive it, sell it, or simply use its existence as a final piece of leverage. But knowing it was there gave me an unexpected sense of security. The morning of the reunion dawned bright and clear. I dressed carefully in my best suit, Italian, tailored midnight blue, a gift from Dad when we'd landed our first hotel chain contract. As I adjusted my tie in the mirror, my phone buzzed with a text from Elena. "He's doing it today. I'm so sorry." I drove to Dad's house first. He was sitting in his study, confused about the day's events. "Is it Christmas?" he asked when I entered. "No, Dad. It's the family reunion. Remember, everyone's coming to celebrate the company's success." Recognition flickered in his eyes. My boys, both my boys, so proud. I swallowed the lump in my throat and helped him into his suit. As I guided him to my car, I noticed Michael's Range Rover already gone from the driveway. He hadn't even waited to bring Dad to the celebration himself. On the drive over, Dad clutched a folder. "Important," he kept saying, "for the boys." I gently took it from him when we arrived. Inside was the original succession plan. Equal ownership, shared leadership in his careful handwriting, dated just 1 year ago, before the dementia had taken hold. I added it to the blue envelope already in my jacket pocket. As we walked through the estate gardens, familiar faces greeted us. Aunt Patricia kissed my cheek. Uncle Robert clasped my shoulder. Cousins and family friends circulated with champagne and canapes. The string quartet played in the gazebo, and white chairs were arranged in perfect rows before a small podium. I helped Dad to a seat of honor in the front row. Michael was already working the crowd, shaking hands, accepting congratulations as if his announcement had already been made. He nodded curtly in my direction, but didn't approach Thomas. My friend from the car dealership arrived fashionably late. He caught my eye and gave an almost imperceptible nod. The car was ready, parked just beyond the garden gate as we had arranged. "Everything all right, James?" asked Uncle Robert, noticing my distraction. "It will be," I replied, patting the envelope in my jacket. "One way or another." Michael tapped the microphone and the garden fell silent as he began his speech. I took a deep breath. Years of brotherhood, shared history, and family legacy hung in the balance of what would happen next. As I handed Michael the envelope in front of our assembled family and friends, the confident smirk never left his face. He took it casually, probably assuming it contained my resignation or congratulations. "What's this, little brother, drawing for the new catalog?" More gentle laughter from the crowd. "Something for you to read right now," I replied, my voice stronger than I expected. Michael rolled his eyes but opened the envelope, scanning the first page. I watched as his expression shifted from dismissive to confused to alarmed. The color drained from his face. This isn't," he stammered, looking up at me in shock. "It's a cease and desist letter," I announced to the crowd, maintaining eye contact with my brother, along with notification that Donovan Manufacturing Process Patent Number 8129456, the cornerstone of our company's competitive advantage, will no longer be available for use by Donovan Enterprises, effective immediately. A collective gasp swept through the gathering. Dad looked confused but aware enough to sense the tension. Michael's hand holding the papers began to tremble visibly. "You can't do this," he hissed. "The patent belongs to the company." "Actually, it doesn't," I replied loud enough for everyone to hear. "It never did. Check the records. I've included copies for your convenience, along with the independent valuation assessing its worth at approximately $800,000 annually in royalties alone." Uncle Robert, our father's older brother, and a retired judge stepped forward. What's the meaning of this, Michael James? Your father built this company for both of you. I handed Uncle Robert a copy of the same documents. Michael has been taking advantage of Dad's condition to rewrite the succession plan. I've included Dad's medical diagnosis dated 6 months ago, along with the original succession documents Dad created when he was of sound mind. Michael lunged forward, grabbing my lapel. You ungrateful little... Michael! Elena's voice cut through the murmurs. She stood shoulders squared. It's over. Tell them the truth. The family attorney, Mr. Winters, who had been standing quietly near the back, now approached. I must say this is highly irregular. The documents I filed last month were signed by Warren Donovan himself. When he was already suffering from dementia, I countered, pulling out the medical records, which Michael was well aware of. Dad's physician, Dr. Levine, who had been invited as a family friend, stood, but I can confirm that Warren's cognitive abilities have been significantly impaired for at least 6 months. I advised the family to handle legal matters with great care. You advised me, Michael snapped, and I made the decision that was best for the company. Best for you? You mean, I said quietly. Michael released me, stumbling backward. The crowd had gone completely silent. The only sound, the gentle fountain in the garden center. It did what was necessary. Michael finally said, his voice hoarse. Dad was losing his grip. Someone had to take control. So you manipulated a sick man. Aunt Carolyn's normally soft voice was steel. Your own father. I built this company, Michael shouted, his composure cracking. While James was playing with his sketches and models, I was securing millions in contracts. Dad's caregiver, Martha, who had been quietly attending to him, stood up. Mr. Donovan Sr. spoke of both his sons with equal pride. Every day he would tell me how blessed he was to have 2 sons with complementary talents. Michael turned to our father, desperation in his eyes. Dad, tell them I'm right. Tell them the company needs strong leadership, one leader. Our father looked at him with heartbreaking clarity. You boys were supposed to share. That was always the plan. Then confusion clouded his expression again. Is it time for my medicine? Elena stepped forward, placing herself between Michael and my father. I found him in your father's study 3 months ago, guiding his hand to sign papers. Your father didn't even know what day it was. Her voice broke. I should have said something sooner. I'm so sorry, James. Michael spun toward her. You traitorous! Enough, Uncle Robert's authoritative voice silenced everyone. This family gathering is over. Michael James, your father. Elena and I will continue this discussion privately. Everyone else, please, respect this family matter. As the guests began to disperse, murmuring in shocked tones, Michael grabbed my arm. You think you've won? You're nothing without me. Who's going to run the company while you're locked away in your studio making pretty furniture? You still don't get it, I said softly. It was never about winning. It was about honoring Dad's wishes and protecting his legacy. Our legacy. So noble, he sneered. Tell me, brother, what happens to your precious legacy when our competitors learn about this family civil war? When suppliers get nervous, when clients start jumping ship? It was a valid concern, one I had anticipated. That's why I'm giving you a choice, I said. We can either work this out privately or I can exercise my legal options. Your call. You wouldn't dare destroy what Dad built. I looked him directly in the eyes. I'm not the one who started this destruction, but I will finish it if necessary. In Dad's study with Uncle Robert, mediating the full extent of Michael's actions, came to light the modified will, the transferred assets, the side deals with board members to support his sole leadership. You had everything, I said quietly when he finished his explanation. We both did. Why wasn't half enough for you? Michael stared out the window, his back to me. You don't understand the pressure, the constant comparison to Dad, the weight of the Donovan name. He turned his expression haunted. You got the talent, James, the vision. The natural gift I had to work twice as hard for half the recognition. That's not true, I started, but Uncle Robert raised his hand. Perception becomes reality, especially between brothers, he said. But Michael, what you've done isn't just unethical. It's likely illegal. Elder abuse, corporate malfeasance, this could end with more than just family estrangement. Elena, who had been silent, spoke up. We have a 3-year-old son who deserves to know his uncle, his grandfather, his heritage. Please, there must be a way forward that doesn't destroy this family. Dad, who had been dozing in his armchair, suddenly spoke with unexpected lucidity. Your mother would be so disappointed. The simple statement hit harder than any legal threat. Michael sank into a chair, covering his face with his hand. I didn't start out planning this, he whispered. It just evolved, one small step at a time. For the first time, I saw my powerful, confident older brother for what he truly was. Insecure, afraid, and human. There's something else you should know, I said. After a moment of heavy silence, I bought the car. Michael looked up, confused. What car? The Aston Martin Valkyrie. The one you've had on your vision board for 5 years. I bought it 3 weeks ago. His face contorted with fury and envy. You're lying. There's no way you could afford the $800,000 price tag I finished for him. That's roughly what I'd have made in royalties this year if the patent had been properly assigned. Consider it my severance package. Uncle Robert shot me a warning look. This revelation wasn't helping de-escalate the situation. So this is about revenge, Michael said bitterly. You just wanted to take something from me. No, I countered. It's about consequences. For years, you've taken credit for my contributions while diminishing their value. You've made me feel like the company was carrying me, when in reality, my designs were carrying the company. Elena touched Michael's shoulder gently. He's right, Michael. I've tried to tell you for years. 3 agonizing days of negotiations followed lawyers, accountants, and family counselors filled the Donovan estate. The company's board was briefed. Decisions had to be made about Dad's care, the business leadership, and whether to keep our family's painful struggle private or risk it becoming public in court. On the 4th morning, as golden light streamed through the bay windows of our childhood home, we reached an agreement. The original succession plan would be reinstated with additional protections. Michael and I would share leadership with clearly defined roles, utilizing our different strengths. Dad would receive enhanced care with a family oversight committee, including Uncle Robert and Aunt Carolyn. A trust was established to ensure the company could never be controlled by just one family member again. For my part, I transferred the patent back to the company, our company, with proper recognition, royalty structures in place. Michael would undergo executive coaching and family counseling. As we signed the final documents, Michael looked up at me, his eyes red-rimmed for sleepless nights. I don't deserve your forgiveness. Probably not, I agreed, then softened. But we're brothers before we're business partners. Mom and Dad taught us that much. Elena, watching from across the room, gave me a grateful smile. The road to rebuilding trust would be long, but it had begun. Uncle Robert gathered us all for a final word. Family businesses survive through generations, not because of business acumen alone, but because the family survives. Remember that, boys. Outside, a distinctive engine rumbled to life. Through the window, I could see Thomas pulling up in the Aston Martin emerald green with carbon fiber accents, exactly as Michael had always described his dream car. Is that? Michael trailed off, staring out the window. Yes, I said, I never actually intended to keep it. I just needed you to understand what was at stake. You bought an $800,000 car to make a point, he asked incredulously. Actually, I bought it because I earned it, but I'm willing to sell it back to the dealership at a loss to help fund Dad's care trust. Michael was quiet for a long moment, still staring at the car gleaming in the morning sun. No, he finally said, keep it. I blinked in surprise. What? Keep the car, James. You're right. You earned it. He hesitated. I need the reminder of what almost happened here. 6 months later, Donovan Enterprises launched its most successful collection, yet a collaboration that genuinely utilized both our talents. Michael's market analysis had identified an underserved demographic, while my designs addressed their needs with innovative solutions. At the launch party, Michael and I stood side by side greeting clients and industry partners. The tension hadn't completely disappeared, but it had evolved into something workable, even productive at times. Dad sat in a place of honor, having a surprisingly good day. When a reporter asked him about the company's repairs, he beamed with pride. My boys, both my boys, they're better together. Later that evening, as the event wound down, I found myself alone with Elena on the terrace. Thank you, she said simply, for not destroying him when you could have. I came close, I admitted. Had the papers drawn up and everything, she nodded. I know he knows too. That's part of why he's changing. Inside, Michael was showing Dad photos of his son on his phone, their heads bent together in a moment of connection that transcended the corporate drama. The company was never just about money or power, I reflected. It was Dad's way of keeping the family together, giving us a shared purpose. Elena touched my arm gently. Sometimes we have to nearly lose something to understand its true value. That night I drove home in the Aston Martin, the 800K car that had become not a symbol of victory, but a reminder of how close we'd come to losing everything that mattered. Michael still froze slightly whenever he saw it in the company parking lot, but now there was respect in his gaze rather than envy. The most surprising change had been in our working relationship. With clearly defined roles and regular family therapy sessions, we had begun to rediscover our complementary strengths. Michael had even started acknowledging my contributions publicly, giving me credit in client meetings and press releases. The board of directors, initially skeptical of our shared leadership model, had become its strongest advocates after seeing the results of our collaboration. Quarterly profits were up 28%. Employee satisfaction had improved, and innovation was flourishing. Dad's condition continued to progress, but more slowly than expected. We had moved him into a private suite in the company headquarters where he could still feel connected to the business he built while receiving the care he needed. Some days he recognized us. Some days he didn't, but he always smiled when we visited together. As I parked the car in my driveway, I noticed Michael's SUV already there. Unusual for this time of night, he was sitting on my porch steps nursing a scotch. Everything okay? I asked, climbing out of the car. Just thinking, he replied, then nodded at the Aston Martin. She still turns heads. Want to take her for a spin sometime? I offered. He smiled, a genuine smile I hadn't seen in years. I'd like that. We sat in comfortable silence for a few minutes before he spoke again. I always thought Dad loved you more, he confessed quietly. The way he'd light up when you showed him a new design, the pride in his voice when he talked about your creativity. That's funny, I replied. I always thought he loved you more. The way he'd brag about your business deals, how you were just like him. Michael laughed softly. We're idiots, aren't we? Competitive idiots, I agreed. But maybe that's not entirely bad. Dad always said competition keeps you sharp. As long as you remember what matters in the end, Michael added, echoing our father's favorite saying. What would you do if faced with betrayal from someone you loved? Would you choose revenge or reconciliation? Would you prioritize justice or family? Share your thoughts below.